This video will be a demonstration of using an ArrayList in Java. We're going to solve the second challenge. Write a Java program that prompts the user to enter an integer value or the Sentinel value of quit. So there we're going to use a method. We've written this one before. It's called getInteger or quit. That will use the Sentinel value logic and input validation to make sure that we're entering a valid integer. Then we're going to store the resulting array values in an ArrayList. And then when the user says they're finished by entering quit, we're going to display the number of values entered in the list and the sum and the average of the numbers in the list. So let's go ahead and get started. Create a project in JDoodle. I'm just going to paste in, I'm just going to paste in the challenge up here so that we have that ready to go. Delete this. Okay, so I know first thing off, I'm going to need to import the scanner and the ArrayList. So let's go ahead and do that. Import java.util.scanner. Import java.util.ArrayList. Okay, so there are my imports. Let's go ahead and define the scanner. This is the implicit definition. Var scanner equals new scanner. Just saving myself a little typing there. I can go ahead and say, let's define the ArrayList. We'll be explicit about the ArrayList. This is an ArrayList of type integer. And it equals new. Well, the name of the variable is going to be numbers. We're going to set it to new ArrayList of integer. And because we're calling a constructor, we need to have the parentheses. Okay, so now we have an ArrayList. We have a scanner and an ArrayList. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our collection of the numbers. So we're going to use a method here. We've written this before in a previous example. It's called getInt or quit. And so this is a method that will either return the Sentinel value of quit so that we know that we're done with the loop, or it will return a string value that can be safely cast into an integer. So let's go ahead and write our calling variable. We're going to say string value equals get int or quit. And that's going to take two parameters, the scanner and then the prompt. Please enter an integer or quit to exit. Okay, so there's our calling method. Now I'm going to go ahead and create that getInt or quit method. I'm going to do that inside the class. So in between the first curly brace and the final curly brace, but make sure it's outside of the main method. So public static, it's going to be return type of string. And we're going to call it getInt or quit. And it's going to take two parameters. The first one is the scanner. And the second one is an ArrayList here. And it's going to be called numbers. Okay, I misspelled string here. Let's fix that. Okay, so now this is an input validation loop. And so we have the pattern for the input validation loop is we're going to have a while true loop. We're going to prompt the user for what we want them to do. We're going to collect data from the scanner. Then we're going to do our input validation on it. If it's valid, we're going to return it. If it's not valid, we're going to loop back around and keep going. So we're going to use a while true loop. First thing we do is the prompt system.out.println prompt. Misspelled system. So then we're going to collect input from the user. That's going to be a string. Let's call it response. And it's going to be the scanner next line. So now we want to test for the Sentinel value. So we say if the response dot equals ignore case, the value quit, then I want to return the quit value as my Sentinel. So I'm going to return response. If it does not equal quit, then I want to attempt to cast it using a try catch block and the parse int. So I'm going to do a try block. My try is going to be parse int. So I'm going to say int value equals integer dot parse int response. So now I'm attempting to take the value that was entered by the user and convert it to an integer. If that works, if that is a valid parse, then I want to go ahead and return response. So because now I know that response can be converted into a valid integer. So which I will do back in main. So now if it does not parse, then I want to catch that using a catch block. And my catch is going to be a number format exception. Okay, we've seen this before, misspelled number. Okay, it's a number format exception, and I'm just going to give you a message here that says that was not a valid integer. Okay. Okay, let's test that. We've written a bunch of code. Let's compile it, see if we've made any syntax errors. I have made a syntax error. So I have Java line 15, incompatible types. String cannot be converted to array list of integer. Okay, so, and it's right here, get, enter, quit. So it's at line 15. So string value. Oops, I passed the wrong variable in here. So my scanner, I don't need an array list. I need the string of prompts. So I defined my parameter incorrectly on my method there. So let's try to run that again. Okay, so what we're testing here is if our get, enter, quit works. So the first thing is if I entered invalid integer data, I should get a message. Okay, if I enter valid integer, that should work. Okay, and I'm done. Now the problem here is that I didn't put a loop. See, the program ended. It should have kept going. I needed to put a keep going loop here up in the main. So let's go ahead and do a keep going loop. That's why I only got one value. So on my then I'm going to do while keep going. Make sure I get my blocks right. Okay, so now if I run this, we should just be in this loop. This will be an infinite loop. So we know that invalid integer doesn't work, is captured by my input validation. If I enter a number, those work. If I enter quit, then that's accepted. I don't get the error message, but the program doesn't end because I haven't coded that part yet. So let's go ahead and stop the execution. Come back here to line 17. So now we know that my input is working. I need to actually process the input. So first thing I want to do is check for that quit value. So I'm going to say if value dot equals ignore case quit, then I want to say keep going equals false. That'll exit my loop. That is not true. Then I'll do an else, and then I'll store the number into the value. So I'm going to say numbers dot add value, integer parse int value. Okay, so now I'm going to parse that value into an integer. And then I'm going to add it into my array list. Then once this is done, we want to do some printouts. So let's just do the first one. Well, let's just print out the array list. System.out.println. And let's just print numbers here, and then we'll get a comma delimited value of that. Okay, so let's go ahead, and then let's do the length. Well, system.out.printf. I'm going to do printf here with a replacement value. You entered, so the number, I'm going to use size here, the numbers.size. That's going to be an integer, so I use the %d. And then I'm going to put a new line at the end of that. And then my replacement value will be numbers.size with parentheses because I'm calling a method. Okay, let's try that. Please enter an integer or quit to exit. So if I enter 12, 17, minus 10, those all work. Quit. Okay, that's working exactly the way I wanted. So now I'm going to enter the sum and the average. So let's say system, let's do the sum first. System.out.println sum of the integers is, and that's going to be a replacement %d because I want to do a printf here, not a println. It's going to be a %d because the sum of a list of integers is always going to be an integer. And then I'll put a new line at the end of that. The replacement value will be ArrayList, lowercase a, because it's method, ArrayList sum. And we'll take one parameter, which is numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that. I'm going to put it here because I like my methods to be in alphabetical order. So public static, the return value is going to be int. The name is ArrayList sum. Takes one parameter, which is an ArrayList of integer. Let's just call it numbers. This is a simple aggregation loop. I define an aggregator variable, assign a default value, then I use an enhanced for loop for int number. Oops. For int number in numbers, the enhanced for loop. For each number, I'm just going to say total plus equal number. And then I'm done. Okay, I'm left out the t here and int, so I'm going to fix that. And then when the for loop is done, I'm just going to return total. Okay, let's run that, see if it works. This logic is identical to the logic when we summed an array. It works exactly the same. 12, 15, 37, 89. Okay. All right. 153 is the sum. That looks about right. Okay. So now we're going to do the last bit, which is going to be the average. System.out.printf. The average of the integers is. Now, the average is going to be a decimal. It's going to be a double type. So we're going to use a format code here for float. It's going to be %. I want the thousands separator. I want 2 decimal points in the float. And then I'm going to put a new line at the end. My replacement will be ArrayList average, and it will take numbers as the argument. Okay, we'll go ahead and write that. It's going to go here at the top because I like my methods in alphabetical order. Return type is double. The name of the method is ArrayList average. Takes one parameter, which is ArrayList of integer. Call it numbers. Okay, this is very simple. So what I'm going to do is just return the sum divided by the size of the array list. So I'm just going to say return array list sum of numbers divided by numbers dot size. Okay. Misspelled numbers there in the parameter. Okay, let's run that and see if that works. I've made an error. I misspelled array list. So it says on line 27, cannot find symbol array list. And it's because I only put one R in array list, and I put 2 R's in the method name here. So I just need to correct one of those. That was a spelling mistake. Remember spelling blocks and semicolons. That's going to be most of your errors that you get. So let's enter this 14, 18, 99, 103. Okay. So I'm looking at this, And this average does not look right because 234 divided by 4 is 58.5, but I'm only getting 58.0. So why is that happening? Well, I've made a mistake in my average logic here because I'm doing division. I'm returning an integer value. ArrayList sum of numbers is an integer, and numbers.size is also an integer. So if I do integer divided by an integer, I'm always going to get an integer. So I need to cast one of these values to be a double, so that I can get decimal precision. So I'm just going to say convert the numbers.size. I'm going to use an inline cast. So remember that every integer can be safely cast into a double, so I don't need any exception handling or anything like that here. So let's run that again and see what we get. We'll enter the same numbers if I can remember them. 14, 18, 99, 103. Quit. Okay, that looks better. 234 divided by 4, 58.5. So I'm getting my decimal precision here. So let's do one more thing. What happens if I don't enter any values? If I just type quit right at the beginning? That means my array list has 0 elements in it. So what will the answer be? The average should be 0. But in this case, I'm getting this special value called nan. This stands for not a number. This is an error because my formula here on line 31 is a divide by 0 error. And so that's returning nan. So it's basically, this is a runtime error. So I don't know, that's not a valid division. So what I want to do here is I want to put an if statement that says if numbers.size is equal to 0, and just return 0. Okay, let's try that again. So first we'll try it with an empty list. Okay, that's everything I wanted. That looks correct. Now I'll try it with some numbers to make sure that we didn't break the average logic. 12. We'll just do 2 numbers, 12 and 13, so the average will be 12 and a half. Okay, so that is an example of using an array list of integer values and using the enhanced for loop and doing some processing on that array list.